Her hands shook as the heavy door slammed shut. A little girl stood outside the orphanage clutching a broken toy bird, her tears blurring the world around her. No one came. No one helped. For 20 years, she lived with the emptiness of a stolen name and a missing mother. But just when her hope was gone, the stage lights revealed a shocking truth. Her mother was alive, and the man she thought was her enemy was ready to risk everything to bring justice back. Why was she abandoned, and could a lie this powerful finally be broken? Stranded on the edge of success, the sun scorched the earth like a punishment from the gods. Asphalt shimmered in the heat along Route 77, deep in the Arizona desert, where cell towers were as rare as rain and shade came only in the form of distant mirages. Logan Barrett, age 35, gritted his teeth as he slammed the hood of his Aston Martin shut, a cloud of steam hissing in protest. He wiped his forehead with the sleeve of his $5,000 tailored shirt, now ruined with sweat. "Unbelievable," he muttered, checking his Rolex 11:38 a.m. In exactly 22 minutes, he was supposed to deliver the keynote address that would determine the future of Helios Corp, his cutting-edge solar technology company. The audience waiting in Phoenix included international investors, a U.S. senator, and the media. They expected brilliance. Instead, their tech visionary was standing in the middle of nowhere, helpless. He fumbled with his phone. No signal. Of course, the irony wasn't lost on him. A man known for building systems that connect the world, now stranded, disconnected, and completely powerless. He kicked the tire, then instantly regretted it. Damn it. Just then, the sound of an engine approached from behind. Logan turned. A dusty old Dodge Ram, worn and sun-bleached, pulled to a stop on the roadside. It looked like it belonged in a scrapyard. The engine coughed as it shut down. From the truck stepped a woman, tanned, skin-short, curly hair pulled into a bun, jeans smeared with oil and dust, a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up past her elbows. She couldn't have been older than her early 30s. Her walk was confident, controlled. "You all right?" she called out, squinting against the sunlight. Logan blinked. "Depends." "You know how to fix an Aston Martin," she smirked. "If it's got an engine and isn't on fire, I can fix it. I'm Kendra. I run Breakpoint Auto about 10 miles south." Logan stepped aside, unsure whether to feel grateful or suspicious. "I'm supposed to be in Phoenix in 20 minutes. "Not in this car, you're not," she said, popping the hood and leaning in. He watched as she worked. Her hands moved with precision, measured, efficient. No fumbling. She tapped a component and muttered, "Overheated radiator. Probably cracked. Looks like you ran this beauty hard without checking your coolant levels. You're sure?" She looked up. "I'm a mechanic, not a guesser. I've got people on the way my assistant should have sent a tow by now." She snorted. "No one's sending anything out here. Closest signal's about 5 miles north. I can rig it to get you to town, but you'll need a real fix after." Logan was impressed despite himself. Most people would have recognized him by now. His face had graced Forbes, CNBC, and Fortune. But this woman... She hadn't asked his name, hadn't tried to impress him, and hadn't even blinked when he mentioned the Aston Martin. There was something refreshing about that. "Fine," he said. "I appreciate the help." She walked to her truck, grabbed a metal toolbox, and returned. As she bent over the engine again, Logan noticed something her left hand. A silver ring. Not just any ring. His eyes locked onto it. It was old. Worn. A delicate silver band with a pale sapphire slightly chipped on one edge. The sight of it struck him like lightning through his chest. He had seen that ring before 2 decades ago. Back when he wasn't a CEO, but just another lost boy at Glenridge Home for Orphans in Chicago. The ring had belonged to a girl who had meant everything to him once. A girl with fierce eyes, a wide smile, and a love for carving birds out of wood scraps. Naya, he said almost involuntarily. Kendra's hands froze. The wrench slipped slightly. She turned her head, eyes narrowed. What did you just call me? Kendra straightened up slowly, the wrench in her hand now still as stone. Her eyes locked onto Logan's with guarded intensity. I said, Naya, he repeated more softly, like the name might evaporate if he said it too loudly. You had that ring back at Glenridge Orphanage. I remember. You showed it to me under the sycamore tree near the back fence. Her jaw tightened. She took a step back, the desert wind rustling the edges of her shirt. That name hasn't belonged to me in a long time, she said quietly, voice laced with something between bitterness and disbelief. Logan took a hesitant step forward, unsure whether he was dreaming hallucinating or stumbling into something long buried. I don't understand. Why didn't you say anything? Why would I? She shot back. You didn't recognize me. Not my face, not my voice. Just the ring. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I didn't even want to stop, she continued, brushing her hands on her jeans. But something told me to. Maybe the universe wanted a joke. You were my best friend, Naya, he said a little too desperately. I never forgot you. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You had a hell of a way of showing it. I didn't have a choice. Logan said the words tumbling out now. The Barretts adopted me and moved me across the country. They wouldn't let me send letters. They said it was better to start clean. I tried, I really did. She crossed her arms. And then what life got good, and you stopped caring, I remembered you, he insisted, holding up a small object from his pocket. Kendra's breath caught. It was a tiny wooden brooch, a bird with its wings outstretched. Her carving, the one she gave him the day he left. She hadn't seen it in over 20 years. You kept it? She murmured, her voice cracking for the first time. I kept everything he said. Memories, your name, that day, the way you cried but tried to hide it behind jokes. You said I'd forget you by Christmas, and I said I'd make sure you didn't. She whispered, looking down at the brooch like it was a ghost. Silence settled between them. Heavy. Real. A gust of wind blew across the highway, whistling between them like the sound of years lost. But you did forget me, she said, quieter now. At least long enough to become someone who'd drive past a place like Glenridge without ever looking back. That's not true, he said quickly. I went back. After college, the home was gone, closed. I tried asking around. They said all the kids were relocated, files destroyed after a fire. She nodded slowly. Yeah, it burned down 2 years after you left. They split us all up. A beat passed. I ended up here, she added, waving vaguely at the barren desert around them. Xavier, one of the old groundskeepers, found me through the foster system. Took me in when no one else would. He taught me everything I know about cars. Logan looked down, shame rippling through him. I should have tried harder, maybe she said. But that's 20 years too late. They stood in silence again, both overwhelmed by the weight of what had been lost and what they had accidentally rediscovered. I never thought I'd see you again, she said finally, especially not broken down on the side of the road begging for help. He chuckled softly. Neither did I. But if this is fate, it's got a weird sense of humor. Her expression softened just slightly. She walked back to the car, grabbed her wrench, and tightened the last bolt on the patched radiator. That should hold you for about 15 miles. You'll make your big fancy pitch. Go be a star. Logan didn't move. Aren't you going to ask what I've been doing all this time? She said without looking at him. I want to, he said. But I'd rather ask where I can find you when this meeting is over. She glanced over her shoulder. Breakpoint Auto. First left after you pass the Welcome to Dry River sign. And with that, She climbed into her truck and drove off, kicking up a swirl of desert dust behind her. Logan watched her go, the sapphire ring flashing one last time in the sunlight. 2 hours later, Logan Barrett stood under the fluorescent buzz of a rusted metal sign that read, "Breakpoint Auto." His Aston Martin sat nearby, steaming gently like it had a hangover. The shop was tucked behind a line of mesquite trees, a stone's throw from the forgotten edge of Dry River, Arizona. Unlike the sleek glass offices Logan was used to, this place was all grit and heart walls plastered with old license plates, an ancient soda machine humming near the door, the air rich with the scent of oil and exhaust. He stepped inside. Kendra Nia, though he dared not call her that again, was hunched under the hood of a beat-up Chevy Impala. She didn't look up. "I figured you'd be long gone by now," she said, "still working." "I told my VP to deliver the pitch," Logan replied. "He's been wanting a shot anyway." She paused. "That project was your baby. The Helios 1. It can wait." Now she looked up, eyes full of surprise but not warmth. "You're not the kind of man who misses billion-dollar launches on a whim." "Maybe I'm not the kind of man I thought I was," he said. She wiped her hands on a rag and set down her tools. "So you came back to say what?" "Sorry I didn't need saving then, and I don't need closure now." Logan took a breath. "I came to listen, and maybe to remember who I was before I became Logan Barrett, Executive Innovator, Forbes list material." Kendra crossed her arms. "Then let me give you a memory." She disappeared for a moment, then returned, holding a small, dented metal box. She flipped it open. Inside were carefully folded papers, photographs, and newspaper clippings. His face stared back at him from one of them. "Tech CEO crowned Green Disruptor of the Year." "You think I didn't notice?" she said. "You're everywhere. It wasn't hard to figure out who you became. What I didn't understand was why you never came back." "I tried, I know," she interrupted. "I know about the orphanage, about the fire. But I also know what happened before that." She handed him one of the documents. It was a land deed. Barrett Industries. Signed by Martin Barrett, Logan's adoptive father. Logan stared at it, confused. "What is this?" That she said flatly, "is the deed to the land that used to belong to my family." He looked up. I'm saying your family didn't just adopt you," Kendra said. "They erased me. They took everything. My mom fought them in court. She disappeared before the case went to trial, and somehow magically the land transferred to Barrett Holdings for a fraction of its value." Logan went cold. "Are you saying they forced her out? I'm saying they buried the truth. And you were the pretty face they used to polish the dirt." He felt like he'd been punched. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear to you, Kendra Nia, I had no idea." She studied him, lips tight. I want to believe that she said, finally, "But you can't undo what's been done." "I need time," he said, "to look into this, to find out what really happened." "You have 3 weeks," she replied. He blinked. 3 weeks for what? "That's when your company breaks ground on your new solar research facility. On that stolen land." A long pause. "And what if I don't find what you think is there?" he asked. "Then you'll finish what your father started," she said, eyes blazing. "And I'll finish what my mother couldn't." Logan barely slept that night. Back in his Scottsdale penthouse, a sterile palace of glass and steel, he paced beneath a ceiling taller than the room he once shared with 3 other boys at Glen Ridge. The view of the city skyline offered no comfort. All he could see were Kendra's eyes burning with the fire of someone who had survived everything he hadn't. He sat down at his mahogany desk and powered up his personal laptop, not the one IT tracked, but the private one. He poured himself a scotch, then began digging. He typed Barrett Holdings, Dry River Land Acquisition. Dozens of archived articles and legal filings appeared. Most were vague reclaimed property revitalization revamping forgotten land. But the deeper he went, the uglier it got. One article from the Desert Courier, 2007, local widow Amelia Brooks files complaint against Barrett Holdings over disputed land claim, says the property was promised to her late husband, who died under unclear circumstances. Complaint later dropped. No further public record. His breath hitched. Brooks. Kendra's mother. He found a notarized transfer document. It was missing pages, sloppy, stamped over with a closed seal. And then something else. Tucked away in an obscure legal database was a sealed injunction from a judge. Someone had tried to stop the transfer. The hearing had been canceled 2 days before it was scheduled. The reason plaintiff failed to appear. He read the name again, Amelia Brooks. Logan's stomach turned. She hadn't just failed to appear. She had vanished. The next morning, Logan drove not to Helios HQ, but to an old warehouse downtown, his father Martin's private storage unit. He hadn't been here in years. The air was thick with dust and silence. Most of the boxes were filled with vintage tech and awards. But in the back, under a canvas tarp, was a locked file cabinet. He pried it open. Inside were folders labeled Project Helios Dry River Transfer, and one marked simply AB. He pulled it out. Photos, surveillance shots, handwritten notes. AB is resisting the offer. If she continues, pressure must be applied. Ensure the child is relocated permanently. Connection must be severed. Logan recoiled. They had planned it. His adoptive parents, his father, had orchestrated the disappearance of Amelia Brooks, and possibly even separated Kendra and him on purpose. He sank to the concrete floor, the file still in his hands. Every achievement, every dollar, every article praising him as a genius, all of it had been built on a foundation of silence and theft. Later that evening, he drove back to Breakpoint Auto. Kendra was outside checking the alignment on an old Jeep. She looked up when she saw him, but didn't smile. "Find anything?" she asked, wiping her hands. He stepped out of the car, holding the folder. "I think your mother didn't run. I think she was forced to disappear." Kendra's jaw clenched. "You're sure?" He handed her the file. "These documents were hidden in my father's private archive. They talked about pressure tactics, relocating a child. There are photos of you, of her." Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Then she stopped. A photo. Amelia Brooks standing in front of a trailer. The year 2006. The caption subject to be relocated before litigation advances. Kendra's voice cracked. "She didn't leave me." Logan shook his head. "No. She was taken from you. On purpose. And I was the cover. The shiny adoption story. A PR move. A misdirection." Kendra's eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. They took everything she whispered. Not just the land. They took her. Logan reached out, but she stepped back. "I need time," she said. "I can't, this is a lot." "I understand," he said. "But there's one more thing." "What now?" Logan hesitated. "If your mother's alive, we can find her. Together." Kendra froze. "You think she's still out there?" "I think someone didn't do a very good job hiding the loose ends," he said. "And if we pull on the right thread?" He let the sentence hang. Kendra stared at him, breathing hard. "Then let's unravel it," she said. The next morning, Logan sat in the corner booth of a rundown diner off Highway 19. He hadn't slept. The coffee in front of him was bitter and burnt, but he drank it anyway. Across from him sat Xavier. Tall, lean, with weathered hands and steel gray eyes, Xavier had the kind of presence that didn't ask for respect. It expected it. Kendra had arranged the meeting. She hadn't come herself. "She doesn't trust you yet," Xavier said, as he stirred sugar into his coffee. "Frankly, neither do I," Logan nodded. "That's fair. She's been through hell. She built herself from the ground up. The only thing she ever wanted was the truth about her mother." "I want that too," Logan said. "And I think I might know where to start." He slid a piece of paper across the table. A copy of a check, dated 9 years earlier, from Barrett Holdings to a facility in Colorado, New Haven Psychiatric Wellness Center, amount $400,000. "Your father paid off the clinic," Xavier muttered. Logan nodded. "The clinic went private after that. All patient records sealed. No visitors, no contact. If her mother was placed there, it would explain why no one ever found her." "She wasn't insane," Xavier growled. "I know. But a woman with no power, no legal representation, and a threat to $1 billion land deal, my father would have locked her away in a second." Xavier stared at him long and hard. Finally, he said, "So what now?" "I called in a favor," Logan said. "A former colleague of mine works in health systems cybersecurity. We got a name." He pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. On the screen was a grainy photo. A woman with tired eyes and streaks of gray in her hair. She was sitting in a garden wearing a plain white dress, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Xavier's breath caught. "That's her," he said softly. "That's Amelia." Logan's throat tightened. "She's alive." They sat in silence. Finally, Xavier stood. "We bring her home." That afternoon, Logan and Xavier drove together to New Haven. It was a sprawling facility tucked into the Rockies. Lush trees, flower beds, and smiling orderlies gave it the appearance of a luxury retreat. But Logan knew better. Places like this were built to bury secrets in plain sight. At the check-in desk, the woman behind the glass smiled politely. "Do you have an appointment? I'm here for Amelia Brooks," Logan said. Voice calm but firm. "I'm sorry, sir, we don't disclose patient information." Logan pulled out a manila folder and slipped it through the slot. Inside was a court order, freshly signed that morning. Kendra had filed it under Amelia's birth name, legally requesting access as her next of kin. The woman paled. "One moment, please." Minutes later, they were escorted through a long corridor. Each door had a small window like a hotel, crossed with a prison. They stopped at room 213. The orderly knocked. "Ms. Brooks, you have visitors." The door creaked open. Amelia Brooks turned from the window. She moved slowly but stood tall. Her hair was streaked with gray, but her eyes, wide, brown, and sharp, were unmistakable. Xavier's hand gripped the frame. Logan stepped forward, barely able to speak. "Ms. Brooks, my name is Logan." I know who you are," she said quietly. "I've seen you. Your face is everywhere." Her voice was strong but tired. "You're the boy who used to carve birds for my daughter." Logan's heart stopped. "She never stopped looking for you," Amelia continued. "And neither did I. They took her from me, took everything. But I held on to one thing." She reached into her pocket. A small wooden bird. A twin of the one Logan had shown Kendra days ago. "I carved this for her," Amelia said, "to remind her who she was. I didn't think I'd ever see the other half again." Logan swallowed hard. "She has it. She's alive. She's strong. And she's waiting for you." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes, but she blinked them away. "Then what are we waiting for?" The wind carried a scent of engine grease and dry earth as Logan's black sedan pulled into the dusty yard of Breakpoint Auto. Kendra was standing at the workbench, her back to the road, welding a piece of metal onto a custom-built chassis. Sparks flew in quick bursts, and her hands were steady, mechanical focused. She didn't look up when she heard the car. Not until she heard the door open and then another. Not until she heard the voice. Naya. Her hands froze. The welding torch clattered to the concrete. She turned, breath caught in her throat. Standing beside Logan was an older woman, stooped, slightly weathered by time and sorrow. Her hair, now streaked with silver, was braided neatly over one shoulder. Her hands trembled, clinging to the small wooden bird she had held for years. It took Kendra a moment to understand what she was seeing. Then Mom. Her voice was a whisper, choked by disbelief. Amelia stepped forward, tears pooling in her eyes. "I'm here," she said. "I've always been here. I never left you, Nia. They took me. They told me if I fought for you, they'd hurt you. I stayed away to keep you safe." Kendra took a shaky step forward. Then another. And then she ran. They crashed into each other, sobbing, hugging like a dam had broken, like time itself was trying to squeeze 20 years into that one embrace. Xavier stepped out from the garage doorway, his eyes glistening. He didn't speak. He just nodded at Amelia, at Logan, at the impossible reunion before him. Inside the workshop, the silence gave way to the sound of healing. Later, the four of them sat around a small table in Xavier's office. A pot of coffee sat between them, untouched. No one spoke for a while. Finally, Logan broke the silence. "I think it's time we take this to the world." Kendra's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" my father Logan said. "Martin Barrett. He's not just a thief. He's a kidnapper, a fraud. And everything I've built, Helios Core, the Dry River Project, the clean energy expansion, has his name stamped on the foundation." Amelia nodded slowly. He didn't just steal land. He stole lives. Logan pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. "I've got records, audio recordings, transaction files, and I have a platform. We're holding the groundbreaking ceremony for the Dry River Solar Complex in 2 days. There will be cameras, politicians, international press." "You're thinking of going public?" Xavier asked. "I'm thinking of ending this in front of everyone," Logan said. "With Amelia by my side. With the real story. Her story." Kendra leaned back, arms crossed. "You're willing to destroy your career. I'm willing to destroy the lie I've been living," Logan replied. "And I don't want the Barrett name anymore. I want to reclaim the one I was meant to have." Kendra studied him for a moment. "Then let's end it where it began," she said. On the land they stole. The morning of the event was clear and crisp. The Dry River Valley sparkled under the Arizona sun. A white stage had been built in front of the half-constructed solar facility. Guests arrived in expensive cars. Drones buzzed overhead. Helios Core banners waved gently in the wind. Logan stood backstage, microphone clipped to his lapel, flanked by Amelia and Kendra. From the front row, Martin Barrett watched impatiently. Dressed in a pristine navy suit, he sipped from a silver thermos, unaware that his empire was seconds from collapse. A staffer approached Logan. "You're on in 5. He nodded, then turned to Kendra. "You ready?" She smiled, a little wry, a little sad. "I've been ready for 20 years. The crowd quieted as Logan Barrett stepped onto the stage. Cameras clicked. Phones were raised. The live stream counter ticked upward, over 900,000 people watching globally. Investors, tech reporters, climate activists, government officials, all eyes were fixed on the golden boy of clean tech. He adjusted the mic. "Thank you for coming," Logan began, voice, even though his heart hammered in his chest. "Today was meant to be about launching the future, about clean energy and sustainable innovation. But before we look forward, I need to take us back." A ripple moved through the audience. "I was adopted at age 13 by Martin and Evelyn Barrett," he continued. "They gave me a name, a future, and education. But they also gave me a lie." The silence became electric. A lie I only uncovered days ago. A lie that began with a girl named Nia Brooks. A girl I met in an orphanage and promised never to forget. A girl whose mother, Amelia Brooks, owned the very land this facility now stands on. Gasps. Confusion. Martin Barrett rose from his seat. "Logan," he barked, voice sharp and warning. "What are you doing?" But Logan pressed on. 20 years ago, Amelia Brooks was forcibly institutionalized in a private psychiatric center funded by Barrett Holdings. Her land was stolen, her daughter lost in the system, and a paper trail was buried beneath corporate filings and forged documents. I have those documents. He held up the folder in one hand. On the jumbo screen behind him, a slide appeared. Photos, scanned files, signatures, transaction records. And I have her. He turned. Kendra and Amelia stepped onto the stage. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as Amelia stepped to the microphone. "My name is Amelia Brooks," she said, voice trembling but strong. "This was my home. The land you're sitting on belonged to my family. It was taken from me under threat when I refused to give it up. Reporters surged forward. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. I was told my daughter would be harmed if I didn't cooperate." Amelia continued. "I was placed in a facility against my will for nearly 2 decades. Today I reclaim my name, my truth, my daughter." Martin was now red in the face, barking orders at his legal team and calling for the microphones to be cut. It was too late. Logan faced the crowd again. "I am not the Barrett's son," he said. "I am Logan Brooks, and I renounce everything they built on silence and injustice. This land doesn't belong to us. It belongs to them, and I'm giving it back." The crowd erupted. Reporters screamed questions. Cameramen surged. And in the chaos, Logan turned to his adoptive father one last time. "You taught me how to build empires," he said, "but she taught me how to build honor." Martin didn't reply. He was too busy being escorted off the premises, fuming, red-faced, already fielding calls from lawyers and board members jumping ship. As sirens wailed in the distance, police federal investigators Kendra grabbed Logan's hand. "You really did it," she whispered. "We did it," he said. Together. It had been 6 weeks since the truth detonated in front of the world. Headlines had swept across every major network Barrett Empire built on lies, land, theft, fraud, and decades of silence exposed. The real story behind Helios Corps' CEO, from orphan to whistleblower, mother and daughter. After 20 years in ordeal hidden by corporate greed, Martin Barrett had been arrested. The charges included conspiracy, fraudulent land seizure, illegal institutionalization, and obstruction of justice. Federal investigators uncovered more victims' families strong-armed out of property under similar tactics. Helios Corps' board moved swiftly. Logan had resigned, but not in disgrace. In fact, his final act as CEO was to redirect 70% of the company's Arizona profits into a fund to rebuild the Dry River region. The solar facility scrapped. In its place, a community environmental and education center built in partnership with native and local leaders, honoring the people who once lived on the land. Logan and Kendra jointly named it the Amelia Brooks Institute for Justice and Renewal. On the day of the groundbreaking for the new center, dozens gathered. Volunteers, community members, school kids, and reporters. But no flashy suits. No staged PR. Just people. And truth. Logan stood beside Kendra in denim jeans and a soft flannel shirt. No cameras chased him anymore. No one barked orders into his earpiece. He felt lighter. Real. Kendra adjusted the brim of her cap. "You look weird without the billionaire armor." He laughed. "I feel weird. How weird?" "Like I've finally met myself," he said. She smiled. "Welcome back." Nearby, Amelia walked among young students, pointing to trees, and showing them old photographs of what the valley once looked like before corporations paved it over. Her eyes sparkled when she looked at her daughter, no longer weighed down by ghosts. Inside the new center, a glass case displayed 3 items: a faded land deed with Amelia's name, a small wooden bird, wings outstretched, a silver ring with a pale sapphire. The caption below read, "What was stolen can be returned. What was broken can be rebuilt. What was lost can still be found." Later that evening, as twilight settled over the desert and the center glowed with soft lanterns, Logan sat under the same sycamore tree where he had once promised a girl he would never forget her. Kendra walked over holding 2 lemonades. "You think it'll ever feel normal?" she asked. He took one of the drinks. "I don't want normal. I want real." She tilted her head. "You ever gonna stop feeling guilty?" "Maybe one day," he said. "But I'll settle for doing something good with it." She sat beside him. The stars blinked above them, vast and silent. And for the first time in years, both of them felt whole. What does it mean to be stolen from for Kendra? Once Nia Brooks, it meant the loss of her mother, her name, her identity. For Logan, it meant realizing that everything he had once been proud of was rooted in someone else's pain. And yet, despite these devastating truths, neither allowed themselves to be consumed by bitterness. Instead, they chose something harder. They chose to confront the past and rebuild something better. This story is at its core not just about justice. It's about restoration. It would have been easy for Kendra to walk away when Logan showed up. She had every reason to, but she didn't. And it would have been easier for Logan to stay silent, protect his empire, and pretend he hadn't seen the truth. But he didn't. That's what makes this story powerful, not just the reunion or the downfall of a corrupt empire, but the bravery of people who dared to feel again, to open old wounds, to look someone they once loved in the eye and say, "I'm still here." Emotionally, it's a reminder that pain doesn't go away by forgetting. It goes away when it's finally acknowledged, embraced, and healed. We see this in Amelia's quiet strength, Kendra's unshakable resilience, and Logan's willingness to dismantle his own throne in order to stand on honest ground. We also witness how power unchecked can rewrite stories and erase voices. What happened to Kendra and her mother is a real reflection of injustices many face when corporations or individuals with influence use silence as currency and force as leverage. But the story also shows that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a habit of clawing its way back to the surface. So what's the life lesson here? It's this: sometimes justice doesn't come in courtrooms or press conferences. Sometimes justice is simply standing in front of someone you hurt and choosing to repair instead of retreat. And no matter how powerful a lie may seem, truth always outlasts it. Whether you've been wronged or you've been the one who looked away, it's never too late to do the right thing. Not for applause, not for redemption, but because healing is contagious. One act of courage can ripple through generations. So if you're holding on to a truth about your past, your pain, or your power, this is your sign to speak it, to share it, to shine a light on it. Because somewhere out there, someone else is still waiting to be seen.